Today we're going through haunted Santa Barbara County, and our first stop is the Santa Barbara Mission. But before we even go over there, this rose garden is of particular interest. During the early 1800s, there was a Chumash Indians revolt, which pretty much decimated their tribe. And it's in this, where this rose garden is today, is where their bodies were put to lie. And later, the bricks to build up the wall that surrounds the mission was actually made in the same ditch, containing the bodies of the Chumash Indians. So this is an interesting site. This is the type of place I like to look at from a potentially haunted perspective, because there aren't any ghost stories associated with it, although you would think that there would be. We're going to be able to do some thermal scans, and as always, we kind of walk around with our EMF detectors just in our pockets, see if anything alarms. Gotta love the irony that this woman is remembered here.
Yeah.
For being a great rose grower.
I was just thinking
as opposed to the hundreds of Indians that were unceremoniously put to rest here.
We're not sad about it.
45 degrees. I think that's a cold spot.
Huh.
43 degrees.
Whoa.
37. Take pictures right over this thing. 32. 25 degrees.
Alright.
This thing is bouncing all over the place like crazy. I've never seen it do this before. Now it's kind of leveling out. Oh my gosh, that was the biggest cold spot I've ever recorded. It's gone now.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm allowed to be in here, but here we go. But just the open space. I can't find whatever that was again. That was amazing. In that direction is the mission, and over there's the rose garden. And I just saw this small foundation. Well, I thought it was foundation. It's listed as tanning vats with no more information around it. So apparently something used in the process of tanning hides, I would assume. Holy God, that scared the crap out of me. Based on internet reports, which are less than credible or specific, this is the wall that was potentially made from clay, built from the same ditch that hundreds upon hundreds of Native American bodies were deposited in and dissolved in lye. So if this place would be haunted, you would kind of assume either the rose garden area or somewhere along this wall would be the place. If anybody has any experiences themselves, they should definitely drop a line, leave a comment. Investigating near the wall, the rose garden, and the mission itself yielded no EMF spikes, cold spots, or personal encounters. Still, that cold spot at the tanning vat was too amazing to forget. Definitely have to go back. Santa Barbara also boasts the second oldest building in the entire state. The Presidio was the last military installation built by the Spanish in America in 1782. It is a current dig site, and some archaeologists have reported strange encounters. What's seen here is a guy, a male apparition that is seen walking and kind of hiding behind the tombstones before vanishing. It's a pretty big cemetery, but this one little square is really the only one with upright gravestones that somebody could really hide behind. I think these types of paranormal encounters are probably the result of less than perfect eyewitnesses. Really, the witnesses didn't notice that a man just got into his car and drove away. That's my thought anyway. There are 2 reports of roadside ghosts in the area. One is a trio of nuns seen on Ortega Road. The only problem we encountered? There is no Ortega Road, but there are 2 roads that contain the name Ortega. Fortunately, they intersect, so we were able to get this nifty B-roll shot. The next roadside ghost is an aggressive hitchhiker in Camarillo on Rose Avenue near Central Avenue. The driver would see a woman hitchhiking, and upon passing the stranded woman, she would appear in the back seat of the car. Maybe there's just too much clutter in my backseat because we were spared her company. We've driven south a little bit. We're in Ventura County now. We are at Ventura Cemetery Memorial Park, corner of Main Street and Aliso Lane. It doesn't look too much like a cemetery anymore because in the 1960s the city removed all of the headstones. Pretty unceremoniously. It sounds like poltergeist, but this is documented that they left the bodies and just removed the headstones. Slowly the headstones are starting to come back as people are, wanting their relatives to be represented here. This is pretty much a pioneer cemetery. A lot of the people that built this area were interred here, and well, still are, with the headstones removed. Now the ghost story associated with the place, there's actually only one, and it has to do with someone that committed suicide in much more recent years by hanging themselves from one of the trees. The ghostly apparition of this male apparition is still seen hanging from the branches. Again, the city has taken some steps recently to try to preserve the fact that it is a cemetery by allowing some of the headstones to come back. However, there's a parking lot on the premises now with bodies buried underneath. So some gravestones you can't possibly put back. All of the original headstones in the 1960s were thrown into Hall Canyon, which is about 1.5 miles from here. We're going to go take a look at that as well. We're not doing too much of an investigation. You might notice that we're not looking for EVPs. We're not trying to communicate so much today. To do that, you really have to sit down, get acclimated to the area, and kind of open yourself up. And we're kind of rushing through a lot of places, trying to cover a lot of ground quickly before the sun goes down today. But that said, we do, of course, have our equipment with us. I got a couple of random spikes on this, just walking around, that weren't repeatable. It wasn't just a power line that I was walking underneath or over. So I can't really explain those. I didn't feel anything, nothing else happened. So I always like to have a couple of pieces of evidence corroborate each other. That didn't happen, but the fact that there were a couple of spikes on this, I did take note of that. I am now descending into Hall Canyon on my own. See if I can find any of these gravestones. It's a little bit of a shot in the dark if we're going to find them, if this is even the right spot. But this is close to the high school, and kind of secluded enough that if the city was going to pull a covert operation, probably a good place to do it. Some idea of the altitude, how steep this canyon is. Now, why search for the headstones? It's, again, more of just a curiosity than anything else. You wouldn't honestly really think that there'd be any ghost story associated with the headstones themselves. But with so many people coming to these individual stones to grieve, to pay their respects, you do kind of wonder if they might leave some sort of a residual energy. Here's a big slab of, is that marble? This? See if there's any other pieces locked in the side of the mountain here. Just blacktop, just asphalt. Well, kind of coming to the end of one of the nearest end of the canyon. See where, there we go, it's starting to level out. You can see homes now. Clearly this isn't where they would be. I mean, there's plenty of places where plant life would grow over a handful of stones. However, we're talking about 3,000 headstones.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if they were brought back out or anything.
I don't know. I'd love to find that out. I did a little more digging and found that in 1972, gravestones not claimed by family descendants were ground up and used to fill in a levee at Oliva's Park Golf Course. It's hard to imagine that would sit well with the over 2,000 people whose names were engraved on those stones. With miles of beautiful coastlines and mountains to go along with a colorful and dark history, Santa Barbara and Ventura counties have some interesting ghost stories, but I feel most of them are still untold. If you have any stories of your own, comment on the YouTube page or send me an email through slimpictures.com.
Illinois Beach Resort. Where the killing don't stop until breakfast. Well, at least I see people sitting. Of course, I'm going to get in there.
They are propped up.
Yeah, they're just nailed to chairs. Just